Name one evil thing I've done.
I don't care how powerful you are, Ghost. You can't break through the shield.
Until today.
How about 2,000?
Among all the antagonists in Danny Phantom, no villain comes close to matching the sheer menace, cruelty, and destructive power of Dan Phantom, also known as Dark Danny. While many of Danny's enemies are dangerous, they often retain comedic personalities, sympathetic motivations, or moral boundaries that make them more complex than purely evil, but Dan Phantom stands apart from them all. He is not simply another ghostly adversary. He is the complete corruption of Danny, stripped of every redeeming quality and transformed into a monster who exists only to dominate, destroy, and inflict suffering. His existence is a terrifying possibility of what Danny could become if he abandoned his humanity.
No, if I had an ounce of humanity left in me, this would be a very touching little reunion.
No more painful human emotions to drag you down.
But of course, I surrendered my human half a long time ago.
Dan Phantom's origin is what makes him especially horrifying, because all it took was one bad day, one tragedy for Dan to be born. After Danny loses his parents, friends, and teacher in the nasty burger explosion, his overwhelming grief convinces him to remove the ghost half of himself in hopes of escaping the emotional pain. Instead of freeing him, this act separates Danny's compassion and empathy from his ghost half. And then when Danny's ghost half merges with Vlad's ghost half, the result is not simply a stronger ghost. It is a being that combines Danny's memories and abilities with Vlad's narcissism, ruthlessness, and hunger for power. All of Danny's kindness, empathy, guilt, and conscience remained with his human half, who Dan then murders moments after his own creation. This symbolic act defines Dan's character as he literally destroys the last trace of his own humanity.
What happened to my human self?
Some things, my boy, are better left unsaid.
Unlike nearly every other villain in the series, Dan possesses virtually no redeeming qualities. Ghosts such as Skulker, Ember, Technus, and even Vlad occasionally display understandable motives or moments that show depth. Some seek recognition, others pursue revenge, and some are driven by obsession or personal ambition. Dan, however, delights in suffering for its own sake. He is not content with just defeating opponents. He humiliates, manipulates, and psychologically torments them. His cruelty is intentional and theatrical. He mocks Danny's ideals, toys with his emotions, and enjoys watching hope disappear from the faces of his victims before he kills them. Despite possessing every one of Danny's memories, he feels no attachment to his family or friends. Instead, he coldly attempts to recreate the tragedy that gave birth to him by ensuring the deaths of Jack, Maddie, Jazz, Sam, Tucker, and Mr. Lancer. His goal is purely selfish, preserving his own existence.
But me, my future, I'm inevitable.
I'll never turn into you! Never!
Of course you will. It's only a matter of time. Actually, nobody's going anywhere. Not until it's time for you to be blown everywhere.
This willingness to sacrifice everyone he once cared about puts him on another level compared to other villains. He is not acting out of anger toward his family or seeking revenge against them. He simply sees their lives as expendable if they stand between him and survival. But even when his actions are about his survival, he doesn't just kill Danny when he has the opportunity. He chooses to break him emotionally. He traps his younger self in the devastated future so Danny can witness the consequences of his own mistakes. He personally tortured and brutalized his old enemies for fun and entertainment, and he constantly mocks and ridicules everyone as he enjoys playing with them.
Johnny 13? Okay, whatever happened to you, You look...
Like I went to seed right after you destroyed my vocal cords?
I didn't do all this to you! It wasn't me!
You're responsible for the horrible things that happened to your world and ours.
This sadistic streak makes Dan terrifying. Violence is not merely a tool for him, it is entertainment. He smiles while destroying lives, laughs during battle, and treats suffering as a joke. The future timeline was stuck with this monster for nearly a decade as he did whatever he wanted with no one there to stop him. His own power allowed him the freedom to make his timeline his own. By combining Danny's already formidable ghost abilities with Vlad's powers, Dan becomes arguably the strongest ghost seen in the series. He effortlessly defeats Danny in their first encounter, overwhelms advanced anti-ghost technology that normally gives Danny an advantage, devastates the future version of Amity Park, and establishes himself as a tyrant feared across both Earth and the Ghost Zone. His ghostly wail alone demonstrates destructive capabilities on a catastrophic scale, and his mastery of numerous ghost abilities makes him nearly impossible to challenge directly. Ghosts and humans feared him.
Me, and I serve a new master now. And when my evil ghost half mixed with yours, and my evil side overwhelmed you.
Danny Phantom grows up to be the most evil ghost on the planet.
What is equally important to Dan's power is his intelligence. Dan carefully manipulates events across time itself. After realizing that his own existence depends upon the Nasty Burger tragedy occurring, he devises a calculated plan to ensure history unfolds exactly as it originally did. He impersonates his younger self, cheats on the career aptitude test, manipulates Mr. Lancer into calling Danny's parents, and positions every future victim precisely where they need to be for the explosion. This is meticulous planning in service of preserving his own existence. The only reason he loses is because of the fact that Danny unleashes the ghostly wail years earlier than Dan believed possible. His arrogance prevents him from imagining that Danny's determination could allow him to surpass his future self. Dan could never believe that Danny would ever defeat him because Danny still had something that Dan threw away long ago, his humanity.
What is that? Some kind of ghostly whale? What a cool power! If it weren't being used for evil...
Dan Phantom is the greatest villain Danny Phantom ever faces. He is stronger than Danny, more intelligent than nearly every other villain, and utterly devoid of mercy. He is the physical embodiment of despair, unchecked rage, and absolute moral corruption. He conquers the future, murders his own human self, attempts to erase his family and closest friends without hesitation, and he enjoys causing pain. Dan is pure malice. Although Danny and Dan share the same memories, they become fundamentally different individuals because one chooses compassion while the other embraces hatred. Dan is the nightmare version of Danny himself, a future where hope has died, humanity has been abandoned, and limitless power serves only destruction. That combination of overwhelming strength, psychological cruelty, and complete moral emptiness makes Dan Phantom not only Danny's ultimate enemy, but one of the darkest and most unforgettable villains in Nickelodeon animation.
Strange how one massive fireball of highly combustible condiments can ruin your whole future.